Okay, our next speaker will indeed be Niels.
How's it, guys?
Hi, Niels.
Ooh, that was almost good. So how's it, guys?
Hey, Niels.
Hey, much better. Right, so first of all, have we thanked our sponsors? We have, cool. Have we thanked the organizers? Okay, cool. Awesome. Once again then, a round of applause for our organizers. You never know. Right. Cool, so Microsoft Open Source R, you gotta be kidding me. What's up with that title? Well, there were not that many years ago then open source and Microsoft was kind of, did not ever happen. Steve Ballmer said something about Linux and cancer and stuff like that. And now all of a sudden, Microsoft is up there. The biggest one of the biggest contributors in the Linux space, have a hell load of open source stuff and have moved into the R space. It's awesome. So this talk is not... Whoa! That was Microsoft calling. Microsoft, do you have a Windows phone? I feel sorry for you. Sorry, Gary. Anyway, so we are going to talk about R in an enterprise scenario in the Microsoft world. Right? I'm Niels. I work at the Rivco. I'm a software specialist. That means that I get to use and abuse new technology. It's awesome. I'm a database nerd. I know nothing, well, almost nothing about R. I'm not a data scientist. Right? So why am I standing here? Well, I was stupid enough to submit a couple of talks to Andrew a while back, so that's why I'm standing here. Now, anyway, so I mean, I'm a database guy. You out there are data scientists, so what we all have together is this thing called data. And plus, data scientist is cool. You earn a lot of money, or so they tell me. Plus, it's also, it's a great, you can get great pickup lines from the data scientists. Like, hey, you want to come home and have a look at my Markov chains? Or what about Monte Carlo simulation? Oh, sorry, simulation. So, okay, right. I was a little bit off topic. So the Rivco, we are awesome, largest development house for online gaming. We have offices, main office in Durban, offices here in Cape Town, Pretoria, and around the world. We're a technology company. So it's not like, so how many here are from banks? Okay, come on, you can hold up. I won't pick on you. I won't pick on you. Right, so you are data scientist in a bank, you are doing development in a bank. That is not the main objective of the business. A bank is doing stuff with money. Right? And you are happening to do development to help with that. We are writing software. That's our job. We are awesome. Largest install base of SQL Server in the world. We are running 2014 and 2016 in production. We're having Hadoop, we're doing big data, we are doing data science. Where is Dane? So Dane in the back of the room, he looks a little bit hungover today. He's broken. He's a data scientist in our team. We're having Rory who runs a team of data scientists, right? So we're doing a lot of data science stuff, and we get to do a lot of cool stuff. No, that's honest. We do get to do a lot of cool stuff. And we are hiring. So if you want to have a cool job, come and see me, come and see Rory, anyone from the Rivco, and we will set you up. Cool. So, having done the shameless, even the little kid in the back, Etienne, come on. So, having done the shameless self-promotion about myself and the company, what are we going to talk about here? So, obviously about R. It's an R conference after all, duh. But we'll spend a little bit of time on R, then talk about Microsoft R services, and finally R and SQL Server. So as I said, I'm a database guy, so SQL Server has to come in there somewhere. Cool. So R, we all know that R is awesome. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here. It's probably the de facto standard for statistical computing out in the world at the moment. And if you're looking at this graph here, we can see that this R is now, or last year, was in the 5th place in popularity of programming languages. Above cool things like C#, above cool things like PHP, etc. So it's an awesome language, right? It's an awesome language, right? Yes. Thank you. I knew it. Right. Cool. The challenges with R, though, are a couple. Data movements. So we probably have data stored somewhere, and if you're like the Rivko, you have data stored in a database. So now in order to do something with R, you need to get the data from the database into your box. And security is not that happy when you are moving data volumes over the network onto your local box, especially if it is financial data, especially if it has to do with email addresses, stuff like that. All right. So you now have managed to get the data from the database onto your box, and you have come up with this awesome model. It's the bestest model ever. Absolutely. How do you now make this operational? How do you now run this model against real-world data? Do you have a data scientist sitting and taking the model, reading in real-world data, and doing and predict against that data, or what do you do? So there are ways and means over this, obviously, but that's an issue. Right? And finally, scale and performance, that R is single-threaded. And when we're doing stuff, the data has to be in memory. Right? So I was going to do coding here, but Andrew told me, you cannot do that. You're not allowed, you have to run on a Mac and stuff like that. So I have some screenshots here. I'm doing screenshots of what I was going to show you in code. My code will be up on my blog at one stage or another when I get time to put it there. But you will be able to download the code and see what I'm trying to say here, right here and now. So I don't know if this is visible from the back, and I don't know how you zoom in on a Mac, even though a Mac is very cool. So this is a typical thing that someone like Dane would do. Right? He sets up an ODBC connection against the database. In this case, the database is called the mortgage database. And then he has a query to get in the test data or the training data that he wants to build a model against. This data here, by the way, is from, it's open source, it's mortgage defaults 2000 to 2009. You can download it from internet, right? Then we're doing a couple of factors for house age and year, and then we're doing an logarithmic regression through GLM against this. Life is good, up to a point when it's not that good anymore. So this is 10 million rows. After a while, you will see how the memory goes up and up and up and up. And eventually, both on my workhorse, my dev box at home, and on my laptop, I am blue screening. Because you can't load it all in. It just poof, and off you go. So I managed very, very carefully to get a screenshot just to show how we are now at 95% memory. The RStudio R session is at 6 gig something and climbing. Right. And this will never load. Or rather, I will never be able to make this model on my box with 10 million rows. Yes, you can probably do it on a beefier box, but this is just to show that maybe R has some limitations. Okay. So here's where Microsoft R Server comes into play. So once upon a time, way back in 2010-ish, there was a company called Revolution Analytics, which had an enterprise offering of R and had some enterprise packages that kind of mimics what you do in R. And they were highly optimized for multi-threading, high performance, high scalability, etc., etc. 2015, Microsoft bought these guys and packaged together this Microsoft R server, which is an enterprise class R. It is open source R, but it's kind of pinned to a particular version. You have it for multiple platforms. You can do it on databases. You can do it in the cloud. You can do it on Windows as a Linux package. Right? And then, in addition, they created R tools for Visual Studio. So for you guys that know a little bit about Microsoft, if you're a developer, you use Visual Studio, or you're not a Microsoft developer. Well, kind of. So they created these R tools for Visual Studio, which is really, really cool, by the way. So if you haven't looked at it, if you're a Microsoft dev house, if you're doing R, have a look at R tools for Visual Studio. Right, anyway. There are a couple of things here that key components in this package. It's the Microsoft R Open, i.e. the Microsoft implementation of R, open source. You have Scale R. These are the packages that are highly, highly optimized. You have Connect R, which allows you to connect to various data sources, databases, cloud, what have you. And once again, R tools for Visual Studio. So the cool thing here with Scale R is that in addition to be highly optimized, you can also tell the engine where you want to execute this. What is the compute context? And you can choose to, as you would in normal R, you would do it on your local machine. Set compute context local, or you can do it against SQL Server, you can do it against a Hadoop cluster, you can do it against a Spark, what have you. Very, very cool. So if we were to have a look at the same data which crashed my laptop, 10 million rows, mortgage data, setting up a connection string, I'm doing some, if you can see, at least the guys here in the front can see that we're having RX histogram, RX get info, stuff like that. So your normal functions that you know and love from R, they are, quite a few of them are prepended with an RX, which means that this is a highly optimized multi-threaded memory is sort of, kind of improved upon. Right? And then we're calling Rx logit, so logarithmic regression. So the code looks more or less as you did with the GLM. The difference here is that the memory sits as whatever it is, and it actually finishes. So here it took 153 seconds, 2 minutes. 2 minutes is a long time. But it's a hell lot shorter than not finishing at all, right? So you can try this at home yourself. Grab the mortgage 10 million rows, try to load it in, and see what happens. Okay, I have a couple of minutes left. Finally, right, so SQL Server R services. So what Microsoft did for SQL Server 2016 was to add support for R. You can now execute R code inside SQL Server. You do not need to retrieve data into your own machine. You can do it all on SQL Server. And you can execute, which then means that no data movement. The security guys are happy. If you want to make stuff operational, you're using stored procedures. And scale performance, whatever people say, SQL Server is fairly scalable and fairly performant. Right? So what you do is In SQL 2016, Microsoft introduced something called the Launchpad service, which allows you to execute external code. And initially, it is R. It will probably be, going forward, be things like Python, etc., but I didn't say that. Right? And then we're calling SP execute external script, which then holds your basically all the R code that you would have written in RStudio, or in Visual Studio, R tools, etc., etc., etc. And now all of this now executes inside SQL. Cool. So R is the de facto standard. We love R. There are certain limitations we have spoken about. Microsoft has an awesome implementation. And we can run R inside SQL Server. Questions? I'm almost on time. How cool is that? First time ever. Questions about that? And you have my contact details down at the bottom left corner there. How awesome was it? Thanks, guys.
Any questions on SQL? For example,
Licensing implications using our server infrastructure.
So licensing implications, I should probably let Gary answer that one. Gary, no? Okay, I shouldn't let Gary answer that one. So obviously if you're running our server inside SQL Server, then it's whatever licensing it is for SQL Server. There is an R server that kind of contains all the goodness that you have that you will get when you're installing the R tools from Microsoft. However, so that's kind of a standalone server. It's somewhat throttled in capacity. So if you want all the goodness, all the real deal, then well, SQL Server or Linux or Hadoop is the way to go. So whatever licensing is, that's it. I think that everyone wants to go and have a drink. Cool. Thanks, guys.